Welcome back to Doctor Who The Cancelled Chronicles. You know it, I know it, so let's get a move on. Series 3 and 4 of UNIT were filmed back-to-back. Richard E. Grant and Richard Griffiths returned as the Minister and Colonel Dearlove respectively in the first episode of Series 3, but not the rest of the series. This came about due to the creators of the show not wanting to recast/replace Richard Griffiths, as he had to depart the series to film Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and Richard E. Grant deciding he wanted to lower his frequency in the role to avoid being typecast. The plot was in turn written to accommodate for their absences. The intro would get a revamp this time, as many thought the old one was a bit boring. The intro would include footage of all the actors when their names appeared on screen while the UNIT theme plays over it. The footage would be from previous series, with the exception of new characters who would get footage from this series. Then at the end, the UNIT logo would be superimposed over the headquarters. The episode title would not get its own title screen this time around, but would appear when the episode starts, like with most television dramas at the time, along with the rest of the technical credits. Nicholas Briggs would be named the new showrunner after the previous one left. Pauline Collins, who stars as Queen Victoria, would get an "and starring Pauline Collins as Queen Victoria" credit when the episode starts, but only for the episode she appeared in, and not in episode 2 to hide her appearance in that episode. Also, to take you out of it a little bit, slight mistake on my part, but Downtime would not be a direct-to-video BBV movie prior to the actual episode like it is in our universe. Should have been obvious, but for some reason, I didn't think of this. My bad. As well as the fact that Joe Wright was the showrunner for Series 1 and 2. The first story is Invasion of the Bane, written by Gareth Roberts. Corporal George Green, appointed by the Minister, is not a believer in aliens and was not expecting much on his first day at UNIT. But when most of the world finds itself taken over by the Bane, UNIT finds itself in a fight for the planet. Drink Bubble Shock, only uncool people don't. The message is everywhere. On TV, across billboards, flyers, posters, you name it. There it is. We begin the episode at Dome, in its only appearance in Series 3. The Minister is concerned as he reads a Bubble Shock article in the Daily Mail. An alien species has evidently established itself on Earth, the Bane, something he's never heard of before. This time he will not stand in UNIT's way. If they get rid of the Bane, all the better. It makes taking over the planet easier for him without the Bane being around. He orders Dearlove to call off their forces and let UNIT deal with the matter instead. UNIT arrive to investigate the Bubble Shock factory, taking the tour at Casper Kremlin's suggestion. The factory is large and gaudy, signage in bright orange. A large animatronic boy stands on the front of the factory holding up a giant Bubble Shock can, resembling the Lard Lad Donuts figure from The Simpsons. A security scanner surreptitiously collects the DNA of the visitors to be transferred to an artificially created 13-year-old boy named the Archetype, portrayed by Richard Madden. The Archetype is designed to study the 2% of humanity that is unaffected by the effects of Bubble Shock. In this particular case, all of UNIT. In an interview with the owner, the obviously evil Mrs. Wormwood, Bombera suggests to Wormwood that Bane, an ingredient unique to the drink, came from outer space. Mrs. Wormwood laughs her off and orders UNIT to leave. As they leave, Mrs. Wormwood orders her secretary, Kelsey, to kill UNIT. They manage to escape by pressing all the buttons of the elevator and stepping out just before the doors close. Meanwhile, on his first day of employment at UNIT, Corporal George Green telephones Casper to learn where he is meeting UNIT on their exit from the factory. As he does so, he drives into the car park of the Bubble Shock factory. Inside, the Archetype's eyes snap open and he takes a huge breath of air, as if breathing for the first time. The sound of ringing alarms, as someone shouting, "Find that phone," fills his ears. He rips off the pipes connected to him and runs for his life, narrowly escaping the security officers. Running down a hallway, he collides with Kent Withers and the rest of UNIT, who have broken back into the factory with new recruit George to investigate what's going on. Surrounded by Wormwood and her forces, a frantic battle begins, only ending when the roof opens, revealing the Bane Mother high above. UNIT are scattered. The Archetype, who understands practically nothing about being a human, is almost found and captured, only for Kent Withers to put his hand over his mouth and drag him back into hiding. Having escaped outside, George Green hijacks a Bubble Shock bus in the street and rams it into the side of the factory, where he is reunited with Bombera and the others. At a loss on how to defeat the Bane and their mother, it is the Archetype who offers the solution. He awoke to the sound of alarms and a guard ordering someone to find the ringing phone. George dials his phone, holding it up. It's not enough. The phone is not strong enough. The Archetype snatches the phone from him and dials a number. He slams the phone into a device on the wall, sending all the alarms around the factory ringing, and collapses from exhaustion as the Bane Mother screams and shouts. They are connected, one affected by the other. Mrs. Wormwood turns and runs as the factory begins to explode. Unit flees, Withers carrying the archetype to safety. Blood is trickling from his eyes, nose, and mouth. The factory explodes behind them, and the archetype's eyes fly open as he gasps for breath. With the passing of the Bane Mother, he's free. Later that day, as the sun is setting, and Unit, along with Bombera's husband and toddler children, sit together in celebration in the courtyard of their base. The archetype emerges. Now dressed like a human, Bombera reveals that she's had Casper Kremlin and Lethbridge Stewart create adoption records for the archetype. All he needs now is a parent and a name. "I want yours," said the archetype, turning to Kent Withers. "He's imprinted on him as a father figure. Kent is the only one he'll accept." "Then he just needs a name," notes Bombera. "Vincent, Harry, Thomas," suggest the members of Unit. "William," suggests Kent. "That's what I was always going to name a son if I had had one." "If you like William, I like William," confirms the archetype, settling himself next to Kent. Peace does not last for long. Between the group, a large portal explodes open. Guns raised and ready, the newly christened William keeping close to his father. Unit steps through the portal with Ancelin and his and Bombera's children. The story would have been fairly well received. Many believed it to be a bit too silly, even for Unit, but was an interesting premise and had a rather good villain. The second story is Tooth and Claw, written by Russell T. Davies. Initially, this story was not planned to be written at all, instead being written very quickly by Russell T. Davies when the storyline for Series 3 of Unit changed. Hooded monks travel across the Scottish moors. They enter the Unity estate belonging to Sir Robert MacLeish. Their leader, Father Angelo, demands possession of the house. When the steward refuses, asking if the wrath of God would make them comply, Angelo responds, "No, the fist of man," as he and the rest of the monks remove their cassocks, revealing orange robes. Exhibiting martial skill, they make short work of the rest of the men. They take over the house, chaining everyone they find in the cellar, including Lady Isabel MacLeish. They carry a covered cage into the cellar. When asked what is contained in it, Father Angelo uncovers the cage, and Lady Isabel screams. Meanwhile, we pick up where the events of Invasion of the Bane ends. The members of Unit, Ancelin, his and Bombera's twin toddlers, and Kent Withers' son William, have stepped through the portal that formed before them and emerge in the Scottish Highlands in 1888, right in front of Queen Victoria's carriage. Bombera introduces the other members of Unit to Her Majesty Queen Victoria, who is on her way to Balmoral Castle. Thanks to a well-placed lie by Kent Withers, who knows his history, Victoria comes to believe that the group have been appointed by her protector by the Lord Provost. Victoria tells her guard Reynolds to trust them and mentions that the royal carriage is traveling by road because a fallen tree has blocked the tree line to Aberdeen. Unit accompany the carriage to the Unity estate, where the Queen plans to spend the night before continuing on to Balmoral the next day. At Unity House, Sir Robert watches from the window, with Father Angelo disguised as a servant reminding him to comply or see his wife devoured. Sir Robert goes to receive Victoria. Despite his hinting that not all is right, the Queen insists on staying. This estate was a favorite of her late consort, Prince Albert, who used to visit Sir Robert's father, Sir George MacLeish. They enter the manor, with Reynolds deploying his men to guard the estate. He also carries a small leather box inside, which he locks in a safe. In the cellar, the captive in the cage, who appears to be a hooded man, indicates to the other prisoners to be silent. Sir Robert shows the Queen and Unit the observatory, which contains a telescope his father designed. William notices that it has many prisms, more than a typical telescope, causing too much magnification for simple stargazing. He then asks his father if he was being rude, which Kent confirms. Sir Robert says he knows little of his father's eccentric work. Victoria mentions that Sir Robert's father was a polymath, equally versed in science and folklore, and that Albert was fascinated by local stories of a wolf. Before Sir Robert can tell the tale, however, Father Angelo interrupts, offering to take the guests to their rooms to prepare for dinner. While William searches through the wardrobes for more appropriate attire, the disguised monks serve the Queen's soldiers drugged drinks, which knock them unconscious. William discovers a frightened servant girl, Flora, hidden in one of the wardrobes. Flora tells William and Kent what has happened. They decide to tell the others. When they leave the room to find the rest of the unit, however, they find an unconscious soldier. The pair are captured, taken to the cellar, and chained with the others, where Ancelin and the babies already are, having been kidnapped off screen. At the dinner table, Sir Robert tells the Queen, Bombera, Francois, and the others a story. For the past 300 years, livestock has been found ripped apart every full moon. Once a generation generation, a boy vanishes and there are sightings of a werewolf. In the cellar, William notices the cage man's alien-looking eyes. He asks him what planet the cage man is from. Amused, he tells William the human body he possesses was born 10 miles away, a boy stolen by the Brethren, but he comes from a much further distance. William offers to take the alien intelligence back to UNIT and them to see if they can help him home, but the caged man does not wish to leave. He shall bite Queen Victoria, migrate into her body, and begin the empire of the wolf. He says William has something of the alien about him, referencing his alien creation, but while William needs the sun to live, all the caged man requires is the moon. Upstairs, Sir Robert relates that his father believed the story to be fact and even claimed to have communicated with the beast and learned its purpose. However, the brethren of the monastery in the Glen of St. Catherine opposed his investigations. Sir Robert asks what if the monks had turned from God and started worshipping the wolf. Bambara sees Father Angelo face the full moon through the window, chanting in Latin, and questions what if the monks were with them now. The monks throw open the cellar doors and moonlight streams into the host's cage, triggering a horrifying transformation. William and Kent rally the other prisoners, telling them not to look, but to pull on the chains. As Father Angelo is transfixed with chanting at the moon, Sir Robert apologizes to the Queen for his betrayal. They were holding his wife. Bambara and Francois demand to know where the others are, but Father Angelo ignores her, continuing his chanting. Bambara, Francois, and Sir Robert rush to the cellar, leaving the Queen with George and Reynolds, who trains his pistol on Father Angelo, asking him what his goals are. Father Angelo replies, "The throne," and swiftly disarms Reynolds. Bambara, Francois, and Sir Robert reach the cellar just as William and the other prisoners manage to break their chains, but the host has finished his transformation and breaks out of the cage. The others run out of the cellar, Anselin transfixed at the beautiful werewolf until the last second. He seals the door as the werewolf howls at the moon. Above, Victoria surmises correctly that the monks had sabotaged the train tracks to bring her here. However, she is not unprepared after 6 attempts on her life and pulls a small revolver from her bag, aiming at Angelo. He sneers at her skeptically, calling her woman. The Queen retorts, "The correct form of address is Your Majesty," and shoots him dead. The women and William go to leave the house through the kitchen, with Bambara protesting angrily at being dismissed, though Anselin tells her that she's the best one to protect their twin sons, which is enough to placate her, while the steward organizes his men. The werewolf has broken through the sealed door, but is driven back momentarily by rifle fire. The women find the kitchen door locked, and the courtyard beyond guarded by monks with rifles. Anselin tells the men they should retreat upstairs. The steward refuses, confident that nothing could have lived through the rifle barrage, and is promptly seized and killed by the werewolf. Sir Robert and the others run. The werewolf slaughters the remaining men and makes its way into the kitchen, where Lady Isabel and the other women huddle in fear. However, instead of killing them, it sniffs the air and leaves. Meanwhile, Victoria retrieves the mysterious box from the safe and rejoins Sir Robert and those of UNIT who remain: Kent, George, Anselin, and Hooper. As they try to escape through the windows, the monks open fire. The 4 run upstairs, pursued by the werewolf. They meet Reynolds, who confirms Victoria has the contents of the box and says he will buy them time to get away. He fires at the werewolf, but is quickly torn apart as the others enter the library and barricade the doors. However, the werewolf does not try to break through. Anselin wonders what it is about the room that is protecting them from the wolf. A man from Love of Magic who's met an incarnation of the Doctor. It could be anything in his mind. Victoria demands to know what the creature is and why Anselin is talking about parallel worlds. Anselin tries to explain, but she will have none of it, declaring sternly that this is not her world. When asked about weapons, Hooper points out that they have the greatest weapons of all in this very room, books full of knowledge, which can give them clues as to how to fight back. In the kitchen, Lady Isabel notices the monks are wearing mistletoe around their necks, a charm against werewolves. She notices sprigs of mistletoe on the kitchen floor and orders the other women to gather the scraps. In the library, Anselin notices wooden details on the doors carved into the shape of mistletoe. He realizes the walls are varnished with viscum album, oil of mistletoe. The werewolf is allergic to it, or the monks have trained it to be as a means of controlling it, and Sir Robert's father knew of this. Kent then jokes about how the wolf's weakness should be wolfsbane and finds it amusing. Lady Isabel and the women cook the mistletoe into a broth. In the library, the others find an account of something falling near the monastery in 1540. Kent theorizes that perhaps only a single cell survived, passing itself from host to host while it grew stronger with each generation. Now now wants to establish an empire, advancing technology and building starships and missiles fueled by coal and driven by steam, laying waste to history. Victoria breaks in and at this point telling Sir Robert she would rather die than be infected. She asks him to find a safe place for something more precious than herself and reveals the contents of the box, the Koh-i-Noor. The Queen had been taking it to the royal jewelers at Hazelhead to be recut. Hooper remembers that Prince Albert kept insisting on having the diamond cut down and was never satisfied with the shape or size. Yelling in shock, Hooper has an epiphany. The diamond, the telescope, Prince Albert and Sir Robert's father are all connected. What if the two men were not just exchanging stories, but treated it all as real and laid a trap for the wolf? Just then, the werewolf crashes through the skylight, forcing the others to flee the library. The werewolf nearly catches up with Hooper, but Lady Isabel appears, throwing the mistletoe broth in the werewolf's face and forcing it away. Sir Robert kisses his wife and tells her to take the women back downstairs while he and the others climb the stairs to the observatory. Kent needs time. The doors to the observatory are not barred against the werewolf. Sir Robert's father intended the werewolf to come in. Sir Robert offers to place himself between the wolf and them, willing to die with honor to atone for his betrayal. He holds the wolf off with a sword. As his screams penetrate the door, Kent and William, who has realized what his father is intending, maneuvered the telescope to align it with the full moon. The telescope is not a telescope, but a light chamber magnifying the moon's rays. The werewolf may thrive on moonlight, but it can still drown in it. The werewolf crashes through the door and moves to slash at Victoria, but William tosses the diamond on the floor. It catches the light, which intercepts the werewolf and suspends it in mid-air. The werewolf reverts to human form. The host asks Kent and William to make the light brighter, to end its life in the lupine wavelength hemivoriform, as Anselin calls it. Honoring the request of the poor boy, Bombera proceeds to do so. The werewolf form reasserts itself, howls, and fades away in the moonbeam. Bombera notices Victoria's wrist is bleeding and wonders if the werewolf bit her after all, but the Queen dismisses her concern, saying it was just a splinter from the door. In the morning, Victoria tells Lady Isabel that her husband's sacrifice and the ingenuity of his father will live on. Terrified of Unit, she admits that she doesn't know who or even what they are, but that their world is steeped in terror and blasphemy, and yet they are able to counter it. She makes it clear that she cannot allow this in her world and warns them to consider how much longer they might survive such a dangerous life. In turn, she recruits them. I propose an institute to investigate these strange happenings and to fight them. I would call it UNIT after this house. Unity House, the Unified Intelligence Task Force, designed to destroy these creatures when they arrive or if they cannot be done to profit off of them for the good of the British Empire. The group make their way back to the carriages, Victoria ordering them to come with her to Balmoral to discuss the foundations of UNIT. Bombera reflects it was always a mystery how Victoria and then her children had contracted hemophilia. She muses that perhaps it was just a Victorian euphemism for lycanthropy. Kent speculates humorously that perhaps even the royal family of their day are actually werewolves. The royal carriage leaves with everyone inside it. The story would have been considered favorable. While many liked the shift in time period for the UNIT team and blending sci-fi and horror decently well, the effects were too goofy, as well as the overall episode being a tad too silly, even for UNIT. The third story is The Spectre of the Locomotive, written by Russell T. Davies. The story that Russell T. Davies was meant to write all along. This story is a standalone story from the first two stories. Also, the intro would change slightly, with a less modern version of the theme and it being slightly more orchestral, as well as the UNIT logo changing to be the British royal family's coat of arms. However, the structure would stay the same. When a train, carriages included, disappears, UNIT is sent in to investigate, but foreign policies may play more of a part than they thought. UNIT, now in their new base, are summoned by Queen Victoria, who explains to them that a train carrying private royal cargo will be arriving in Evesham, and they are to go and make sure the train arrives on schedule without any problems. Arriving at Evesham Station, UNIT step onto the station, watching as the train approaches, light shining out of the fog, only to fade from view right before their eyes. UNIT begins to investigate what has happened, but armed with only a lantern, deems it too dark to discover what has happened. They will return in the morning. The next day, UNIT returns to investigate. There are no signs of the train, nothing at all. No footsteps to indicate people moved the train, no signs of the train going off the rails, nothing. While it is concerning, Bombera declares that it is not the end of their search. They will need a map of the surrounding area, which they are able to obtain from the inside of the station master's office. Inside, they find a new telegram from the previous station, reading, "Message to all stations. Pondrick is located at Bridlington Station." Also on the desk, underneath the telegram, is the composition report. On the wall, they find the map, labeling the route between London and Nottingham. Talking to the station master outside, they discover that a telegram arrived the previous night from Bridlington station, noting that the train had been delayed due to an issue with the passengers, but not what the issue was. At Bombera's request, he marks Bridlington station on the map, and Bombera sends Kent and William to investigate, while she and the others travel back to London to report on their progress to the Queen. At the station, Kent and William discover that a passenger from the missing train is still there. The passenger explains that he and his colleagues were returning home from work the night before, only to be thrown off the train at the station by a new ticket inspector who claimed their tickets were invalid. He then adds that the ticket inspector threw everyone off the train who is not obscenely wealthy. At Kent's pressing, the man is able to identify that the men aboard the train, the wealthy passengers left behind, were Spanish looking. Another man at the station is complaining loudly. Kent and William realize that this must be Mr. Pondrick, who ordered the special carriage at the Queen's request. Kent explains that he is leading the investigation into the missing train, omitting that he is only leading the investigation because Bombera is in London, and Mr. Pondrick tells him that his device ordered by the Queen, which already has several investors who were traveling on the missing train, is capable of creating electricity, thus negating the need for coal usage in trains. At Kent's urging, Pondrick explains that he had to deal with the investors, the board of directors of a Chilean company, Velasquez, for the prototype. He adds that he was in fact traveling on the train until the station master, who he spitefully refers to as an idiotic whelp, made him get off the train. The station master, who could not be any more than 20 years old, explains that he received a telegram that a wealthy investor wanted to see Pondrick, who explains that he chose to wait when the man did not arrive, and that despite his requests, the train left without him, leaving him stuck at the station. When the station master protests that they had a schedule and had to meet it and could not delay the train, Pondrick just punches him and threatens to sue him, something the odious man certainly seems capable of doing so. William and Kent, while not able to deduce much more, are able to work out that it was not an accident that the Chileans were left on the train. But now the question before them becomes, why? They talk to the station master, who explains that the train is a regular on the line. People use it to travel to and from work every day from Evesham to Nottingham, but that everyone was asked to get off the train at this station and it delayed the train. And now, to make it all worse, he has two incredibly angry customers and a broken nose from one of them, who are threatening to sue the train company for their lack of service. The young station master admits there was something else strange about the occurrences, but that he cannot say due to the station rules. Kent threatens him with obstructing the law, since the unit here are on royal command, and the station master gives in. He explains that he scolded the man for throwing people off the train, since that was not his right to do so, and then later in the evening received a very peculiar telegram from the next station. Sneaking around in the back room when no one is looking, they discover that Pondrick has the same contract, an exclusive sales contract with several different companies, including the Queen. Now there's a suspect. With the insurance from the sales contracts, the loss of the prototype that Pondrick is delivering means he will make a lot of money. William points out, however, that the insurance will not in fact cover the cost of the prototype, and that while Pondrick may have been intending fraud, he is also a victim of the situation. Arriving at Chesterfield Station, they discover a telegram machine along with a Morse code translator. William notes that he thought every station master knew Morse code. They go to the station master about it, only discover that he is so drunk that he can barely remember what happened the previous day. Is it possible that the train did not in fact pass the station, and he was so drunk that he did not realize and sent the telegram anyway? Investigating in the back rooms, they discover a winch-operated trolley and dirty tools and some removed track. Did they actually see the train at all that night, or just a lamp on the trolley with a whistle? Possible, they both have to admit. Exploring further, they discover an old lamp. There are two side routes off the line, one to a mine collapsed according to a newspaper, and one to a quarry. A telegraph, one that the station master is too drunk to notice, explains that a Chilean company bought out the mines, which the Mexicans wanted. Has this just become a murder case? Do the Mexicans hold a grudge? The telegram also explains that the track needs to be removed so the Chileans cannot get in. Was that why the mines were collapsed, or is the train in there? Traveling to the Doncaster station, they discover that the track has been removed there too, since the dam has burst and flooded the mine. As they explore, William is shot at, the bullet narrowly missing his right ear. Everything becomes clear with the discovery of a letter in a hidden cart. The Mexicans stole the train, kept the Chileans on board, and drowned them in the flooded quarry with the train, because they were angry at the mine being purchased out from under them by the Chileans. Chileans. It is carefully planned murder. The Mexicans killed the Chileans and sank the train in the flooded quarry to hide their crimes. Everything ends with a shootout. The Queen arrives with Bombara and the rest of the unit, and when Kent explains what has happened, the Queen orders the murder of the Mexican people hiding at the station. The Mexicans shoot back, leading to the slaughter of several innocent people on the station. Bombara threatens the Queen that this must never happen again, and if it does, unit will not obey her under any circumstances. We end on the Queen exceptionally angry at being spoken back to, leaving unit to make their own way back to London. The story would have been heavily praised. The story and mystery would have been considered one of the best written unit stories ever, with some decent character work here and there. The fourth story is A Murder at Midnight, written by Nicholas Briggs. This story would begin the 3-part finale arc for this season. Working with Detective Aberline, unit ends up tumbling straight into the mystery of Jack the Ripper when a lady of the night is found murdered. The story would leave hints as to Jack the Ripper's identity, which would be revealed in the finale, and hint that Queen Victoria knows something about the Ripper's identity, and she allows an obviously innocent man to be framed for the first Ripper murder. But what is she actually hiding? The story would have received monumental praise. Similar to the previous episode, it was properly dark with a lot of great mystery elements, and many liked that, as well as the hints of a mystery with the Queen and Jack the Ripper. The fifth story is Quandary of the Queen, written by Ian McLaughlin and Claire Bartlett. The episode would be somewhat standalone, despite being part 2 of a 3-part finale. None of the unit cast would feature, and it would be a whole episode in the life of Queen Victoria, showing what has happened with her since unit arrived several months ago, and revealing more about what she knows, culminating with a final shot of a howling wolf in the drawing room of the Buckingham Palace, and the full moon shining in. The story would have been praised. Many liked seeing the change of pace, and perpetuated certain aspects of the ongoing mystery. The sixth and final story is Truth of the Terror, written by Jason Arnop. Everything is revealed. Queen Victoria is a werewolf and Jack the Ripper is a shape changer. Born to an alien mother trapped on Earth who had to work as a prostitute to survive, and a human father who abandoned his mother at the scandal of pregnancy, the Queen's son himself, the future King Edward VII. The episode reaches a pinnacle when Queen Victoria in werewolf form is gunned down by Francois Lavelle, who is killed in the process, dying on the floor of Buckingham Palace with the Queen. To avoid messing up history, unit allows the shape changer to escape, and he transforms into the form of Queen Victoria, intending to rule for the next 13 years as the Queen to keep history on track. The episode ends with unit and the shape changer turning to the window as a clap of thunder rings out, followed by an evil laugh. The real Jack the Ripper, wearing a Phantom of the Opera-esque mask covering his face, is standing in the window and steals William before fleeing into the night. All unit can do is watch him vanish into the darkness, William under his arm. The series ends on a shot of Jack the Ripper, William under his arm, jumping across rooftops as the credits ascend across the screen. The story would have been praised once again. Many like seeing everything come to a final conclusion, but also leaving a tease for next season. Series 3 was considered the best series of Unit. Many liked how it shied away from the Dome subplot and liked the change in setting to Victorian London. The overarching plots were praised in addition to the episodic adventures. The characters who lived would all be returning for the next series. Moving on to Series 4, which would introduce a new character, Victorian bar owner Agatha Wilford, portrayed by Chloe Annette. In order to further change things up, the series would be one adventure split into 5 parts, with a final episode to tie everything up. The original series was going to be brought down to 5 episodes, but realized that they still hadn't tied the loose end of the Master and Dome up, so they decided to use their 6th episode to do just that. Outside of that, very little would change outside of characters that did not make it to this series. The first story is Ripper, Jack the Ripper, Part 1, written by Jason Arnop. This episode would be a slow episode to start the series off, and to catch up any new viewers, by showing the events of a period of months in the life of Agatha Wilford as she keeps stumbling across Unit, who are searching for the missing William. Jack the Ripper keeps thwarting them, disappearing in explosions of smoke before they are able to capture him and find William. Agatha is invited to join Unit after successfully injuring Jack the Ripper, who knocks her out and vanishes in a puff of smoke. The story would have been relatively praised. While some admitted that the slowness was a weakness, understood with setting the new story up, and the story in and of itself was praised. The second story is Ripper Jack the Ripper Part 2, written by Nicholas Briggs. Episode 2 would feature 2 consecutive plots, a secret passageway being built under Agatha's pub to link with the underground unit base, and Kent and Hooper investigating the latest murder of Jack the Ripper, hoping to find some clue as to William's whereabouts. The first plot would lead to the discovery of the equivalent of a Lazarus pit under London, thus explaining why Jack the Ripper is untouchable. The second plot would lead into a ransom letter from Jack the Ripper being delivered to Unit. The story would have again been fairly praised. The mystery was well executed and the character moments in addition to that. The third story is Ripper Jack the Ripper Part 3, written by Ian McLaughlin and Claire Bartlett. Episode 3 would feature one long plot, Unit and Agatha investigating the underground tunnel that has led to the mysterious pit and would lead to them discovering and rescuing William. A fight with Jack the Ripper would occur with Bombera, Anselin, and their children, Agatha and George falling into the pit along with Jack during the fight. The rest of Unit help them out, but Jack is gone, and to escape, Unit will have to pass through a corridor full of their worst nightmares. This story would have been praised once again. Many liked the more horror aspects of the episode, as well as finally getting a win against Jack, even if a small one, with finally getting William back. The fourth story is Ripper Jack the Ripper Part 4, written by Jason Arnott. Episode 4 picks up where Episode 3 finishes, with Unit chasing after Jack, who escapes them by climbing through open doors of a passenger train as it steams past, leaving Unit stuck on board the train full of hallucinogenic gas placed there by Jack to hold them off. Facing hallucinations, can they work out who the other guests on the train are, or are they going to gun them all down? The story would have been favorable. While many liked many aspects of the story, mainly with the setting, morality, and character drama, many felt that the story of Jack and him constantly escaping was wearing thin and felt that the episode could have been better. The fifth story is Ripper Jack the Ripper Part 5, written by Nicholas Briggs. Unit finally find a way back to 2001, only to discover that falling into the resurrection pit, like Bombera, Anselin, and their children, George and Agatha, all did, prevents them from returning to the present, as the amount of time passed away from the resurrection pit would cause them to shrivel up and die. That gives Bombera an idea. Jack the Ripper always disappears before sunrise. Why? Because he needs to be replenished daily by the pit. Unit sets a trap. Jack the Ripper returns to the pit only to be caught and raised into the air by a net before he can hit the water. Wailing and flailing before their eyes, he shrivels away and his clothes drop into the pit, which launches a column of liquid into the air before giving up. Its consciousness doesn't live on via Jack the Ripper anymore, but it does live on through Bombera, George, Agatha, Anselin, and their children. And of course, there are still the remainder of the Ripper murders to occur, so someone else will soon pick up the knife and resume things, and Bombera and the others must be there to stop him. With only Hooper, Kent, and William returning to the future, Unit discover that in their absence, the Minister and Dome have enacted their plan. They have brainwashed all politicians in the world and taken control. The story would have been, for the most part, very much praised. Many liked seeing the proper conclusion of the story. However, the fanbase would be divided in terms of Bombera and her family staying in Victorian London, as well as never finding out who Jack really was. Some didn't like her leaving. Some felt it was a good conclusion. Some felt it was more mysterious that Jack's identity was never revealed. Some wanted answers. Despite this, it was still a well-liked episode. The sixth and final story is Minister's End, written by Jason Arnott. Unit versus Dome. It has all come down to this. The final fight. The Minister's forces and what remains of Unit meet in combat. While Casper Kremlin orders Unit, such as the other soldiers who are under Bombara but have never been named or in major focus, into combat, Kent and Hooper sneak into Dome to shut off the machine that the Minister has running under the building. William remains safe at Unit headquarters. As they reach the machine, they are confronted by the Minister when he returns with Colonel Dearlove. The Minister shoots at them with a hidden gun in his cane. Hooper falls. Just as planned. Sort of. The Minister is so distracted with shooting them that he and Colonel Dearlove fail to notice his bullet has impaled itself in the glass of the machine. Kent turns and shoots the machine, dragging Hooper away as the Minister and Dearlove rush to stop the machine from exploding. To no avail. Kent and Hooper make it out of Dome just in time, for the building explodes, taking the Minister and Dearlove with it. Dome and the Minister are defeated and politicians all over the world are freed. 1 month later, Hooper is recovered. Casper Kremlin is talking with what remains of Unit's main core, in this case, Hooper and Kent. For now, until Casper can find new employees, they'll have to go it alone. The phone rings, Casper picks it up, eyes frowning. He puts the phone down and turns to Kent and Hooper. A horde of pterodactyls have been perched on Buckingham Palace. We end on Kent and Hooper, now armed with a gun. Leaving to resolve the situation, Casper picks up the phone and begins to look for new staff. The story would have been considered mixed. While many liked finally seeing the Dome story end, the final episode felt majorly tacked on despite it being an okay story. Series 4, while not as good as Series 3, was considered the second best series of Unit outside of the tacked on series finale. Nicholas Briggs wanted this to be the final season as it wrapped up everything between the two settings, but due to the major growth in ratings over the last two series, the BBC greenlit another. Briggs would leave because of this, and the new showrunner for the 5th series would be longtime Doctor Who collaborator Gary Russell. This is where I leave you for Unit. Next up would be the first 2 seasons of the 10th Doctor era. See you soon!
Hi everyone, this is Greg Wiggle here with a special news flash. The Wiggles just love to have fun with everybody, every day inside Playhouse Disney.
Hey Greg, that's not news. Everybody knows the Wiggles like to have fun.
Oh, but hang on a second, Murray. I can see 3 people out there who we haven't met yet.
Hello, nice to meet you. Want to see how much fun we have? Come on, check it out.
The Wiggles are coming up next inside Playhouse Disney.
Now, everybody knows. Yeah!